Good morning. Happy February the 29th, which will probably be the first and only time we ever do this session on a February the 29th.
Good point. I've forgotten about that.
Yes. Apparently it's not even a legal day. So, some people, and I've actually seen some organisations have given their staff the day off today, but we're still here. Yeah.
If it's not a legal day, does that mean we can do illegal things?
I don't know. I hadn't thought of that. I'm not sure if I'm prepared to try it. You've flummoxed me already, and we haven't even got into data yet. If you haven't met us before, we're Luan and Andy. We do these updates every month. As you might have guessed, they're completely unrehearsed. Even though we do prepare for them. We prepare for this almost every day of our working lives in terms of the fact that we're reading news, we're reading updates and research, and we come together every month, say hello to each other quickly beforehand, and then for an hour, we cram in as many changes as we possibly can to share with all of you that are hard at work day to day, posting on social media, planning social media, following, doing audits and research and everything else. We hope this session is helpful to you all. Should we dive straight in today? Because we've got a lot of data to share. And I thought, for those of you that aren't familiar, or those that need a reminder if you've forgotten since a month ago, we will dive into data, look at some latest research, and then we will go platform by platform through all the feature changes that have happened over the last month. But I thought it'd be worth just giving a caveat to the data that we share and why we do it in this way. And jump in, Andy. It's like we both read so much. We can't share every single thing with you. Some of it is for our own learning. Some of it we're digesting in our heads. So what we're presenting to you is some data resources that we think are credible, valuable, and worthwhile sharing. We don't do this in a way to try and overwhelm anyone, because you can't all do everything or all have a takeaway from every single slide that we've got packed into this session. We just think it's a useful roundup and do this on your behalf.
Yeah, I think that's great context. And realistically, even though there's quite a lot of data, the takeaways from this are fairly small. And we'll always end with like a handful of like, what are the implications? What are the things we need to consider? And to your point, Luan, like you don't need to take action on any of this, right? But it's all here to kind of empower us all with as much contextual knowledge as possible. And once a month, grab a coffee, and then you can feel up to date in terms of everything that's happening in the world of social. So, of which there is always quite a lot. And particularly so this month, because our favorite report came out. And this report, I think there's lots of reports that you and I read, and many of them have multiple hundreds of pages to them, which most normal people, if you have a life, don't actually all of that. So we spend time like reading that and then just picking out the bits that we think, we're curators here, because this data is not our own research. This is us taking little bits and pieces that we think, actually, this is genuinely useful for us to inform our social media strategies if we desire it to be. Anyway, we haven't done, should we do quick intros before we dive in, Luan?
Yeah, because I think we have got some new people. I'm just having a watch of who's logging in. My name's Luan. I'm a marketing consultant. I've been in marketing now for nearly 25 years, working in advertising agencies, working client side, now been running my own consultancy business for 12 years and have a wonderful mix of working directly with clients, advising them, working on plans, getting hands-on sometimes, and also teaching and training as well. I do that in-house for organisations and do a fair amount of teaching at universities. I was on campus with a university yesterday. So hello, if there's any students watching, you only found out about this a few hours ago, but I know some of you were going to tune in. So I look at the updates every day because it's important for me as a practitioner to know what's happening. But I also feel that this is a service that I offer to my clients and my peers as well to help everyone else stay up to date.
Nice. And I'm Andy. I don't have as much experience in marketing as Luan. My background and context is all from like building businesses. So 7 years ago, co-created a company social media platform called Content Cal. of which we grew to becoming the fastest growing product in the world and in our industry in the world. Otherwise, it makes it sound far too impressive. And yeah, now I work for Adobe, who bought us 2 years ago. And the business was built predominantly through social media. That actually is a nice segue into the only plug I'm going to do today before we just go into information. But this is a good plug because we built all of this social media scheduling capability in a product called Adobe Express. And all of it, for the first time ever, is entirely free, which is pretty cool. So I think, to my knowledge, this is the only entirely free to use social media creation publishing platform. So very cool. So basically all the stuff that we've spoken about today, you can go ahead and implement and do entirely for free. There is no catches to that, by the way, at all. So cool. All good news. Yeah. Right then, with that, let's dive into some data and trends. And a lot of it's going to be focused around this report, which comes out, is it every quarter, Luan, or half year?
It's every quarter. Yeah.
Okay.
I will just, for those that are watching live, this is being recorded as well, so you'll be able to watch it back. We're also happy to share the slides, so if anyone does want a copy of the slide deck afterwards, let us know. But all of these slides where they're screenshots are from datareportal.com, and I'll put that link in the chat afterwards.
Yeah, awesome. Perfect. Won't spend very long on this. I'm just going to draw your attention to the right-hand side, which is the number of unique social media identities. Basically, people using social media, 5.4 billion, 5.04 billion. Pretty shocking, unbelievable statistics. First time we've seen it go over 5 million. And pretty much we're nearly at like peak adoption for social media, because only 5.3 billion people across the world have access to the internet. So it's pretty phenomenal how ubiquitous social media has become. And this chart really just shows the growth rates of it. You'd seen the growth rates tailing off. So naturally throughout COVID, you saw double-digit growth again. We saw that tailing off in 2023, but actually in 2024, growth has accelerated again. But of course, we're going to be hitting a plateau. So I'm not too worried about the year-on-year growth. Ultimately, there's never been a medium that connects us quite like social media, which is quite phenomenal, really. So then what happens to all of this usage? Where do all of the 5 billion people across the world hang out? Now, these are the world's most used social platforms. And this is based on active users. Some of this is kind of best guess estimations, because it's not all of its official numbers. For example, LinkedIn, as an example, you'll notice that LinkedIn are not even on here because they don't report their numbers in that way, just to call it out, because many people say, where's LinkedIn? Why is it not here? That's why. But I think the thing that's always useful calling out, like Facebook, actually their growth rates have accelerated. We'll share more about this. Like, the media roll the clock back 6-12 months ago when their share price was tanking and the whole big bet on the metaverse hadn't paid off. Everyone's like, oh, Facebook's dying, etc. It's really not. It's picking up again, and now for the first time ever, they've crossed 3 billion users. So, yeah, like I just never subscribe to anything. Like, we often see it in marketing, like, oh, that's dead, and this is now a new thing. Like, that's old, and this is new. All of that's nonsense, right? I really don't subscribe to those like absolutist terms. Everything, ebbs and flows a little bit. But I'm a firm believer typically of like staying a course if you believe your audience is on that platform and and it serves your own business purposes. The other thing to call out before I get your take on this too is YouTube continues to grow at an incredible rate. So 2.5 basically billion monthly users, which is phenomenal. So YouTube still is an incredibly powerful platform for our businesses, and still, I think, quite underused, as I talk about pretty much every month. I have that same narrative. So I'm going to pause now. What's your take on the bits of data, Luan?
I think your point there around, this is dead, this isn't happening. I think this is, as I said, the data we present is a snapshot of what we read, and what we need to take away is what is the context that we're looking at this in, and how can we apply it to our own personal use of social media, our own business. It will be different for the stage of growth your business is at, the resources that you have available, your goals as well. What's important for me is I always use this slide and many of the other slides as well, is to give context and background. And the Facebook one is actually the one that surprises people, but then you put it into context and say, do you use Facebook? No, you might not do right now, but your audience does, or other people do, and then they find a place for it. And I'm increasingly seeing with some marketers that they think about what they do, and we're not always our target audience and our own customers. So we have to think about other people and other users. And for me, Facebook very much firmly fits into that of like, even if you don't use it, other people are. And for me, don't underestimate the power of Facebook groups. That is what are, for me, active, whether it's local community, peer-to-peer, brand groups, anything else. There is so much value going on in those that I believe that is why Facebook still keeps that top spot.
Yeah, amen to that. 100% agree. The number of social platforms used, I think this has remained pretty consistent. But again, this is one of those scenarios and data points that perfectly demonstrate what you were just talking about, Luan. It's like that we might not be our own target audience. And those 5 billion people across the world are spread across multiple different platforms, right? Many people might default to one with higher priority, right? So what's that for you? LinkedIn, I'm guessing?
Yeah, LinkedIn would be my priority. But what also sits behind this one is a note. Anyone that ever works with me and I say I'm going to do a quiz, this is an answer. So you have to remember this 6.7 number or whatever it changes to. This is global. And what's great about this report is while we tend to present the global overview, that there is country by country breakdown data in here. So if you are only working in the UK, go and look at those slides. If you're working in other markets, make sure you look at those slides because there are slight changes. Around this 6.7, that is an average. Andy, you and I probably do fit into that average in terms of where that comes from, but younger users of social media tends to be a bit higher, maybe 7, 8 different social media platforms, and older users, 55 plus, tends to be about 5.6 something. So again, we are presenting average figures here.
Definitely, but the message stays pretty solid.
Oh,
which
absolutely.
We'll typically need to be thinking multi-channel if we're going to be wanting to reach our audience, because our audience, I never, once again, going back to those absolutist terms, saying like, oh, my audience is only on Instagram. It's just factually not correct, you know. So it might, and it's okay if Instagram is your focus and you're seeing most growth from it. Absolutely brilliant. But naturally, if we want to think about where our next vectors of growth will come from, then we do need to be thinking multi-channel, because audiences typically aren't, in absolutist terms, only spending time on one channel, which kind of nicely goes into the nerdiest, but I think both of our favorite slides, Luan, because again, it really demonstrates the kind of nuanced mix and how we can get out of some of the typical narratives that we see in the social media management world, where it always seems like, oh, you know, you do this, follow these steps, and it will all be fine. Kind of embrace the chaos of social media, because it isn't clean and nice, etc. So, but what this is showing, so just to orientate you around this, if you've not seen this before, but if you joined these sessions before, you've likely seen it and heard me say similar things. So if we took LinkedIn, for example, 0.1% of people are unique to platform. So naturally, even if LinkedIn is our primary way of reaching people, and it's both of ours, Luan, both of our kind of primary platform, and that's totally cool. But naturally, you know, about 51% of LinkedIn users are also on TikTok, to give you an example. So your audience isn't just on LinkedIn. Your audience is spending time across multiple different platforms. So it's a great opportunity for us to think multi-channel. How can we repurpose and repackage our messages across different channels to help increase the reach of our messages? And I think this data really underpins how and why that's such an important approach to our social strategy.
Yeah,
I can talk around this forever.
Yeah. I always take one perspective on this one when I use this data in my work, is to say to people, we do need to be on more than one platform. Absolutely, as we both have, pick a priority focus, but then think about how we use the different platforms. But I also like to use the numbers here to reassure people that you don't have to be on everything. So if someone is saying to you, we have to be on TikTok because everyone is on TikTok now, you can use this data to support your conversation by saying, yes, people are on multiple platforms and this is growing, but of everyone that uses TikTok, only 0.1% of them are unique. They are also using, and you can always reassure people that you're not missing out by not being somewhere, that you cannot be on everything. You can't be on 5, you can't be on 6.7, you can't be on more than that. You've got to focus. But I know what's coming up on the next slide, so I'll just say it now, is that each platform plays a different role for you. So what Andy, you said kind of, LinkedIn is our priority. We do use other platforms. You're posting your videos and repurposing them onto TikTok. I use Instagram stories a lot when I'm out and doing in the moment, this is where I am, this is what I'm doing. We do use other platforms, but it's where we focus our efforts first, because you have to prioritize and work with the resources that you've got.
Exactly. Yeah, it's really interesting. Like with any data, you can look at it in a number of different ways, and data is really there to help you tell a story, whether it's to your clients or your boss or whatever. So number of different ways you can look at it. But the audience is split, and there is a big mix across different platforms, which is the main message here. And I always like this one too, which is like the time spent. And the reason why I care about time spent is because the more time that people spend on a platform, there's more available screen real estate for our content to be shown. So if people are spending 34 hours per month on TikTok, which is quite frankly shocking, and if people are spending
easy to do,
it's very true, very true. But that gives our content a much higher opportunity of it being seen. So it's unsurprising that we'll see like the average reach and engagement rates, that we've actually got some data for that later on TikTok, much higher than other platforms. That doesn't mean that you should drop everything to do TikTok, but it's just factually, when people are spending more times on a certain platform, that means more opportunity for us to garner attention and increase organic reach. So I think that's the core message from this slide. Is there anything else that you want to overlay?
I think it's just how different they are, and we also have to, we're always wearing two hats, aren't we? We are social media users as well as using social media to promote businesses and for marketing purposes and for networking and recruitment. So we always have like these two hats on. I think what I would say on here is, when we're talking about prioritizing which social media platforms we use, we tend to talk about that in terms of what we post on and are visibly active on. You will not see me hugely active on TikTok, and certainly not for work purposes. I use that for travel content, but I probably not far off 34 hours a month in terms of watching what other people are doing, helping people plan what they're working on, taking ideas from TikTok and using them for other reasons. So when we talk about using a social media platform, there is the active posting versus gathering news, information, ideas and curation as well. And I think that's where the mix comes into play.
Definitely. And that's something we'll actually talk about later, is the frequency of how much people are posting, which we don't often think about too much.
Yeah. Because
less people posting means more opportunity for us too. Anyway, let's talk about brands. Brand use of social. I always love this section of the report because this is why I use social. I use social to build brand, right? Yeah. So, and this gives you an idea of the statistics that are highlighted in orange is where they index the highest on each platform. So for example, let's take TikTok. Index is the highest for looking for funny or entertaining content. So naturally, my eyes immediately go to follow or research brands and products, like where do the platforms index highest for that? Interestingly, like a Pinterest index is quite high for that. Probably less so in a B2B context, but in a B2C context, you realize that is very intent driven as a platform. Mm-hmm. We don't often talk about Pinterest, but there's a huge amount of power in that as a platform. But Instagram and Facebook continue to index very, very highly when it comes to following or research brands or products. This is typically the column I'm most fixated on by this data. Probably nothing really that we can take so much. And actually, when we look at some other data in a second, I probably will move on into the next couple of slides because I think that will really shine a light around how some of that will help inform our strategies. The high level message for this slide, however, because you'll notice that this data has been fairly static. They changed the methodology, but I don't really know what it was and what it's been changed to. Either way, the TLDR on this slide is that basically 74% of internet users aged 16 to 64 use social media first when it comes to brand research. For me, that is an absolutely killer statistic. That's the thing that absolutely underpins why Luan and I have dedicated our life to spend thinking about social, doing social media strategy, building brands on social, because increasingly so, that is the way that buyer behavior is shifting. Because whenever we're searching products or services to buy, and I posted about this on LinkedIn this morning, but if we're looking at products and services to buy, we're looking at, we face two major challenges. We faced search costs. And I don't mean financial costs, I mean like time cost. So it's very hard to look through Google, to put something into Google and to then determine what's the best product to buy. Because basically it's whoever's got the best SEO wins there. Yeah. So it's very hard to trust. Then the second area of cost is opportunity costs. So whether you're making a purchase for yourself or personally or through a business context, making the wrong decision carries a weight of responsibility. So how do you know what is the right product to buy truly? So that's why search is such a hard thing. And that's why we're increasingly seeing more people shift to social media and smaller communities, because the only way that people can really feel trust enough to feel like they're comfortable buying something is when they hear word of mouth or community-based recommendations. So leaning into that and understanding that context really helps us understand how we can unlock social media and how powerful it is to drive like sentiment and trust and word of mouth at a grassroots level. Sorry for a long narrative on it, but it's quite important, this one.
I think this is just to add, many people may have heard this before, the fact that, over 70% of people will be doing their own research before they ever get in touch with an organization, particularly in B2B. We are doing our own searching now, whether that is friends and family, whether it is search engines, whether it's social media, whether it's, going down the street and walking past a shop and, looking in the window. We are doing our own research before we ever reach out. So we have to be ready for that as marketers, with our content, with our presence, and discoverable as well is probably the key out of this. We've got to think about, can people find us?
Definitely agree. So I said we were going to be speaking more about like brand research by social platform. And this slide digs a bit deeper into what we were just talking about, as to what the kind of typical user preferences are and the typical user behaviors are on each social platform. So if you put a microscope over brand research, these are the platforms that these users aged between 16 to 64 would typically defer to first when they were trying to research products or services to buy. Now, I posted this on LinkedIn this morning, and someone commented to say, why I'm surprised that LinkedIn is quite low. And I'm not surprised, because this is obviously a broad global study, and where most people are in a B2C context when they're buying products. So naturally, you would expect Instagram and Facebook to index higher, because B2B or buying products for your business context is absolutely of lower frequency than, finding the right makeup or table lamp to buy or whatever. So that's why I think LinkedIn's lower, but I don't think it's any less important, and it's equally as important. If you were just looking at this through B2B, then you would see how important LinkedIn really is. And to be honest, I think if you're looking at a broad swathe of individuals across age 16 to 64, I think LinkedIn's actually incredibly high. So I think it underpins how powerful all of these platforms are for brand research. What's your take, Luan?
Again, I think it's, this is a snapshot. This is this isn't specific by country. It's not specific by B2B or B2C or sector size or spend either. It's, it's very different between buying a pair of shoes and buying a piece of software. So this is broad, but the point is people are searching for brand information.
Definitely. Cool. Some engagement benchmarks. You're going to see some declines here. So this isn't a hugely positive stat. So naturally, like TikTok is following the same trajectory as all networks have as they've continued to grow. I think I want to call out Instagram on this, though. So even though we've seen TikTok decline in engagement rate, which you would expect, we'll talk more about why that's actually happening, still incredibly high when compared to other networks. And by engagement rate, we mean for the people that have seen your content. So as a percentage of reach, how many people took an action and interact on the content, click, like, share, comment, etc. So Instagram, however, like whilst Instagram has been on a constant downward trajectory, which is very normal as platforms reach maturity and have, best part of 2 billion users, they've actually now started to plateau in terms of engagement rate, which is a good thing. So I think Instagram is, again, having another moment thanks to Reels. So engagement rates overall are staying quite flat, and that's actually a good thing rather than declining.
Can I just add something on that? In that, because I know it's a point coming up as well. Obviously, these research pieces like this are taken from publicly available data. So when, in particular, my understanding, when we're seeing like engagement rates and comparisons, this is potentially taken from what is visible to a third party on a feed. This doesn't necessarily take into account story engagement, what's happening in DMs, conversations as well. So it is very much, again, that high level summary. It's absolutely like for like in terms of its methodology across platforms, but this isn't absolute figures. Only you will know absolute figures for engagement rates because you have access to your own accounts and the full suite of information.
Definitely. That makes sense. And to be honest, the other way that you can look at benchmarks as a nice way of saying, like, if your Instagram engagement rate's over 0.7%, then you'll feel that you're doing well. So so it's a nice way just to look at it from a broad perspective, but also then consider the impact over time. And I think, Instagram are doing very well. So Facebook just passed 3 billion users, as we spoke about earlier. There was a big decline in monthly active users or daily active users, or otherwise known as DAUs. You'll notice that Facebook have started to turn it around. I don't actually know how or why, to be honest, but they are back on an upward trajectory, which is incredibly interesting. And the fact that they've just this broad and this big, they're still maintain. I think the TLDR here is that, don't sleep on Facebook because it still continues to be a super important platform for all of us. And Snapchat, for those that are into Snapchat, because it always seems like one that we don't focus on as much, to be honest, because quite frankly, I'm not in the target audience or demographic for Snapchat. No shame in admitting that. No. But their growth still seems to be really, really strong. Of course, they index incredibly highly with the youngest age segment across social media. So naturally, that age 13 to 16-year-olds are the influencers of, you speak about this a lot, about the influencers of potentially other decisions that need to be made in a household, right? So, Luan, you had some good narratives on this. And if you are targeting some like a younger audience with whatever product or service that you offer, then Snapchat is one that really stands out on its own across all of the social media platforms as one that really indexes and majors on that audience. Any thoughts on those two pieces of data, Luan, before we move on?
Again, I'm not a Snapchat regular user. I think this is a platform where perhaps the demographics of the platform like it because their parents aren't there and businesses aren't there so much. So we know that that's how platforms always take off, is that people like it for the way it is and then change their usage. I think that's what Snapchat needs to stay as it is and not be bombarded. I think we have enough other platforms as the kind of comparison show.
Cool. Some other bits of information for you. So I think that's most of the big kind of data bits out of the way, and we're going to get some more kind of feature by feature stuff. LinkedIn is doing incredibly well. They don't report active users, but they've got 1 billion members. Seeing a lot of boost from some of their AI oriented tools. So you'll see AI appearing in lots of different places on LinkedIn. Not all of it I completely agree with, but some of it's quite useful. But either way, LinkedIn's having a bit of a moment right now. And I don't know, Luan, if you saw the podcast with Dan Roth, who's the editor-in-chief. You see that? I thought you would be on top of that. But
I'm going to share that later because there is a lot of changes happening to LinkedIn over the next 24 hours. And yeah, it's brilliant.
all right, I will not spoil that one. So let's move on to YouTube. I love this statistic on this bit of data is kind of slightly hard to pass when you look at it, but I'll give you the high level. YouTube is incredibly strong, stronger than all of the other platforms across demographics. So you can see how high YouTube indexes across all of these different demographics from 18 to 29 to 65 plus. Whereas we were just talking about Snapchat majoring on a much, much younger audience. Whereas YouTube is the place where everyone is 2.5 billion monthly users. And it's the only platform that has completely equal distribution across the age ranges. So 65 plus watch it as much as 18 to 24, which is kind of mind-blowing to me, or nearly as much, but kind of mind-blowing to me. But it's just incredible as a platform, as a marketing platform. And this is something else that blew my mind as well. And I love this statistic. TikTok is going very big on TikTok Shop at the moment. If you spend any time on TikTok, you would have noticed that yourself anyway. But what I couldn't quite get my head around is like they are the 5th largest e-commerce player in the UK market. Like that is madness all of a sudden. So they really are turning, you know, I've been saying for a while that they have said themselves that they're not a social platform. They're an entertainment platform. But I think we've all known it, that they have their eyes on Amazon's business. That really is where TikTok is headed. And for the posts that link to certain products, so if you use TikTok Shop and you've got your products listed there, those posts that are pointing to shoppable products are receiving a significant boost right now, which has overall impacted the TikTok experience negatively. Lots of people are reporting that. But irrespective of that, if you are a B2C brand, TikTok has just become even more important, especially if you've got products that work well in a social commerce scenario. So definitely want to consider. Any takes on that, Luan? I think I
think this is what's really TikTok is different, but this is also what's differentiating them, isn't it? Is this push towards e-commerce? Because we did see, and we have reported on before, how Facebook, Instagram shopping, they tried to push e-commerce, particularly during the lockdown periods, and invested in there, but then withdrew a lot of those features and those opportunities and pulled back. So I always think it was interesting that they did that, but TikTok have pushed forward on that. And I think I had a Q&A yesterday that said, did I think social media was encouraging impulse shopping? TikTok Shop, yeah, without a doubt. Then it was like who's bought something? Yes. So I like the fact that we have got a platform that is differentiating itself.
Yeah, definitely. New features. Well, which ones do you want to touch on? Do you want to do this?
I'll do a few. So we have talked about AI before. We hosted a separate session entirely on AI at the end of last year. I'll put the links in the comments later. This is both an opportunity and a challenge for everyone to embrace the opportunities, understand, learn how to use these tools, but also there are challenges in terms of outputs from the AI tools, biases, but for me also transparency as well. If anyone has been doing any image creation with AI, it is scary as well what you can see out there. So we are seeing the platforms continually working on this, and Meta are now labeling, for transparency purposes, AI creations, and I think that's a good thing.
Definitely agree.
We've got some more slides in here. We won't dwell on them, but we obviously just want to present them to you as a roundup, that within that data reportal, you will find the demographic profiles of each platform. They give this information to us in terms of advertising audiences. This is our audience that we have the opportunity to reach through advertising, hence why you won't see the users aged under 18, because for many platforms we now can't advertise to them. Very clearly on Instagram, a younger demographic. And engagement rates. And I, even though we presented some, was it social.io research earlier in terms of engagement rates, I also really like of course, the data reportal, because they present it by different types of posts. So I think the big thing about Instagram, and a blog that they shared last year, was how each feature, stories, reels, feed works differently on Instagram. So we can't put it into a broad approach. As we said, engagement rates are great as a benchmark for when you're preparing, seeing how you compare, but then set your own engagement rates and benchmarks with your own data. But I like this one.
Yeah, and just to call out here, engagement versus followers. So this is why Reels continues to be super important, because you'll realize the reason for this being above 1% is because often Reels is shared way beyond your followers. So naturally that percentage is increased. So yeah, they're still pushing Reels really, really very hard. So this gives you a great opportunity to like weigh up the different formats your post, so you can kind of make better content strategy decisions based on post formats, because they clearly do make a pretty stark difference in terms of your reach and engagement rates.
Yeah, and testing out carousels in Reels as well. So I'm not quite sure how this is technically going to work when they start rolling this out, but it does show that it's like that photo dump content, the multiple images. We want lots of variety in our content. Flipside, I had to double check this one. Flipside is being tested. This is a feature where you can create a distinct list of friends. So this is separate to your close friend lists, and pulls on the fact that we are now seeing more private sharing going on. So this is express yourself on the flip side, where you can be really specific and tight networked around who you want to share your content with. I will just share, I love these ideas that we can be niche and specific with our content when we're sharing, but I always go by if it can be screenshot, which it can on phones and desktops, don't think that anything is ever completely closed down to a group that you think you're in control of.
Yeah, that's good advice. And I think this Flipside feature really just pulls on that trend at the moment, which is just a rise of private sharing, which you already alluded to today as well, Luan. More people wanting to share just privately with their friends rather than posting to a feed, which is an interesting trend.
Yeah. Making it even easier to create reels. So we've now got an auto create reels from your camera roll, which is nice to see those features that made making TikTok so easy now coming into the Instagram Meta suite of tools as well. Collabs. We have talked about collabs. We are both huge fans of collabs. That's why we've been doing this for 3 years, nearly 4 years. Now, collaborating with other people, organizations, brings so many benefits. We could do a whole session on this. But the fact on Instagram, you can now really see the results of collabs as well. So when you're doing something with, with another partner, are you gaining followers from it? So having data to support the benefits, of course, we love that.
Yeah, love it.
Tagging products on Instagram posts. Again, we said that, e-commerce is not so big on the Meta platforms, but if you have got products and you're talking about them, you can tag them in. Custom video stickers. This has come up on a couple of platforms as well, hasn't it? And was part of story updates a month or so ago, where you can use what's in your own camera now and do cutouts and create stickers. So we don't just have to rely on what's in the library as such. We can be creating our own assets as well.
Yeah, Instagram in general seems to be giving us a lot of more creative options at the moment to help our content stand out, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Facebook.
Do you want to talk through this one?
Oh, yeah.
You go.
Right. Nice. Well, similar kind of story as we saw on Instagram, average engagement rates here as well. So Reels, again, performing very, very highly on Facebook. To be honest, Reels has been one of those things that, I mean, I don't know exactly what's caused Facebook's like growth and turnaround in their fortunes. But Reels definitely is a big part of that. Naturally, it's really taken all of the video consumption, which have really decreased. So basically, the message here is that don't post long videos on Facebook. Try and make them into reels, because that's the way you're going to get more people watching it and drive post reach. And reels has been something that's really encouraged people to start coming back to Facebook more frequently. So it's nice that we can actually say we've got some organic reach and engagement that we can get on Facebook again. And get away from that whole kind of mentality that Facebook used to be like, or had to be, pay to play, which is just not the case, where you've got groups, you've got reels, you've got lots of different ways that we can engage our audience. And also, just as a kind of other side note, something else that continues to perform well is those personal profiles that have been put into professional mode. So similar to what used to be creator mode on LinkedIn, those Facebook type of profiles where it's your personal profile, but with like a more of a creator orientated bias. And to be honest, have you tried that out, Luan?
I haven't tested it out, but I know that you were.
It certainly works. I mean, to be honest, I still don't want to spend any time on Facebook personally, because I just don't want to be there. But the test was very successful. So me switching my profile, posting reels, got me a whole load of reach, which is a really good experiment, but wasn't experimental enough to make me spend more time on Facebook, if I'm honest. And you'll notice Facebook's audience dominates, or is predominantly dominated by males as well, which is quite interesting, and typically skews a little bit older than Insta, as we were seeing. Other things that are quite similar, creating custom video stickers like we just saw on Instagram too, some more creative tools. And again, Facebook leaning more on the kind of creative and reels type of angle. X, before we hand over to, and you can do the bit on LinkedIn, because again, X, much more heavily male orientated, which will probably answer some of the reason why it's not the most positive platform on the planet. Probably needs more females to balance it out and make it a nicer place to be. But anyway, you'll notice that the age segments are very akin to Facebook too. So skews a little bit older than some of the other platforms. And just one update from X, if anyone's still using X at the moment. And I think sometimes we're kind of shamed into not using X, or Twitter, if you want to carry on calling it that, because of all of the things that are going on. It's still a super powerful platform. It continues to grow, continues to index very highly for product research, as we saw earlier. And from an advertising perspective, which we don't often talk about, but I thought this was interesting enough to call out, is that you can advertise on creators' videos and embed your ads as part of creators' videos. X is leaning in very heavily into video right now. They've said that they want to transition to becoming video first. Whether users actually want that, don't know, but they're certainly pushing video hard, which is a great message for us, and maybe a good test for us to run to figure out if our videos will perform well on X. But also, advertising on creators' videos can give us a great opportunity for our content to reach like the perfect target audience if there are creators in our niche that produce the content that appeals to our target audience. So that could be super powerful. Yeah. But you've got good things to share on LinkedIn, so I'm the time. Yeah. So hand on.
So LinkedIn, as we've both said, is our priority platform for both of us because of the audience and the nature of the platform, and because of what we do. There is such a mix in the billion users of LinkedIn, but you can see here that actually it skews very highly towards what will we call early career users, 25 to 34 as well, which if in B2B you'll hear me talk about very often, and for those of you that we're kind of talking about funnels and things like that, the brand research element within organizations, particularly B2B, when it's large products or service features, very often I find that early research, review, questioning, information gathering is done by younger members in an organization, which absolutely fits with this age group as well. But there are, of course, very senior executives on LinkedIn as well who are active, and younger people do continue to join this platform as well. And that's a lot of the work I do with universities is how to use LinkedIn from the beginning of your career and all the way through as well. But it is a smaller profile. There is changes coming to LinkedIn, and we are expecting them to happen today, tomorrow, some of these rolling out. The first one is around your My Network and notifications tab. And this is being split. This is rolling out at the moment. I haven't seen this, but when you go into My Network or notifications, it will be split into a grow column and a catch up column. So this is very networking focused around managing your invitations, finding new people to build your network with through the recommendations, but also being able to catch up with your existing network, whether it's commenting on what they're doing, whether it's work anniversaries, birthdays. I could do a whole session on this. I won't. I would just say a lot of LinkedIn for me is about nurturing those messages and those contacts behind the scenes, not always the public posting. So I'm really looking forward to having this kind of separated out for me. The big thing, we've mentioned this briefly last month in terms of LinkedIn advertising. This is happening from today, rolling out. If you're advertising on LinkedIn, the lookalike audience targeting option is going. It's being removed. I think you will have a limited amount of time to use any lookalike audiences that you have already built and saved, but they will not update and they will be phased out as well. They are saying you can replace this feature by using their predictive AI tools as options. And then the big one is, well, is it a big one? Did you even know about creator mode? Had you switched to creator mode? LinkedIn is removing its creator mode option from today. This is because they are rolling out the features to everyone. So creator mode involved a few kind of different settings and features at the top of your LinkedIn profile. It allowed you to go live on LinkedIn, do audio events and do newsletters. That is being removed. Features will be opening up to everyone on LinkedIn. One of the reasons, Andy mentioned a podcast earlier, I will share that afterwards, is because apparently LinkedIn users don't really refer to themselves as creators in the same way that people do on other platforms. So they're removing that name, rolling out the features, but there is one key thing to be aware of, is that everyone will be able to change their default from connect to follow if they prefer to. Connect is reciprocal exchange, follow is one way. And I find both options are valuable in terms of what do I want to see in my news feed versus who do I want to follow, and just kind of gather information and insights from. If anyone's got questions on that, probably do that in another session, but changes are imminent and to watch out for.
Nice. Yeah, thanks for that update. I really like where LinkedIn are headed at the moment. I think they're probably the most healthy of all the social platforms at like managing spam or nonsense content and really focusing on valuable stuff. Again, engagement rates for TikTok much higher than all of the other networks, but we've already touched on that anyway. Audience skews younger, but don't let that put you off to say like, oh, it's only younger audiences. You'll actually see quite a spread, but yeah, the skew is younger, quite similar demographic mix to Instagram, to be honest. Live streaming's opened up on TikTok as well to allow those with less than 5,000 followers to live stream too. They're pushing live streaming quite hard as well. So if live streaming is your thing, like it is for Luan and I, TikTok is a good platform potentially to stream that to as well. And I know I always sound like I'm always on like banging the TikTok drum every time we speak, but like it does present a great opportunity for those who want to post. But you know, half of the adults on TikTok have never posted a video, and it just goes to show like you know, even you might look at it in two ways. One, don't feel pressured if you're not doing TikTok. You don't have to, because you join a huge amount of people that just don't. And it also represents great opportunity for those who are willing to take the leap. And to be honest, most networks, you could look at it like that. In fact, the mix on LinkedIn is even more stark. The vast majority is 90% on LinkedIn don't post. They just consume. So there's actually in that regard, there's even more opportunity on LinkedIn, to be honest. This I did find very interesting. Adding a whole dedicated search shortcut on home just goes to show like how important TikTok is becoming for all of that kind of brand research stuff that we were talking about earlier. They are both going after Google and Amazon in the same breath. Absolutely fascinating to watch. Again, with like that we saw on Facebook and Instagram, giving you different creative ways to to change your video up. So you can change your background with some AI generated effects. You can export to GIF as well if you want to make a funny GIF on TikTok, and you can export that easily. And one thing that they are pushing big time at the moment is 30-minute uploads. So not content with taking on Amazon and Google, they're taking on YouTube as well at the same time. So one of those bets will pay off. I just don't know which one. I'm curious about this, to be honest. It's a completely, it goes away from what popularized TikTok, but it also then opens up the opportunity for anyone to start publicizing kind of longer form content on TikTok. And they're pushing it. They're pushing it hard. So sorry for the horrible screenshot. This is just from TikTok's creator program. But basically, post videos over 1 minute in landscape to get increased views. Just goes to show how much they're pushing on longer form content and also landscape orientation. So once again, very kind of YouTube. Basically, they're all copying each other. You get YouTube Shorts, you get carousels in Reels on TikTok, and you get carousels in Reels on Instagram. Basically, they're all becoming one and the same. But it does mean that we get great opportunity to repurpose our content across, multiple different platforms. We can change the background of our live stream as well, similar to kind of AI changing background of the video that we just spoke through. And there's still
more. There's still more. There is more.
We are nearly there. So let's look at some of the others. And Blue Sky, which is one of the kind of newer offshoots from X, ultimately. So there are a bunch of platforms that saw great short-term growth when it all happened with Elon's takeover of Twitter, etc. Blue Sky is founded by the ex-Twitter founder, Jack Dorsey. So it's on a quick growth trajectory, but of course, like scale-wise, it's much smaller. But Blue Sky, why it's quite interesting, it's more about like smaller niche communities, similar to Mastodon, which is another platform which is very similar to that. Now, I don't think either of those platforms are ones we need to down tools and like focus on and, panic about whatever. But it's a very interesting trend that we'll continue watching and continue reporting on as we see an increasing fragmentation of social media and see more communities adopting, or more people adopting, these smaller niche communities in their own safe spaces, which I think for us as marketers poses interesting challenges and interesting opportunities in equal measure, I think. Threads, again, in a similar vein to Blue Sky as well. That's on a good growth trajectory, launched in Europe, which actually helped give it another kind of shot in the arm for growth. I'm not seeing like a huge amount of momentum still on Threads. Curious to know if anyone in the chat that's seeing good growth there.
I saw a really interesting post this morning. I think it was Adam Missouri in his latest updates that said that they're considering archiving thread posts after a month so that it doesn't stick around, which I think is really interesting for any user of, creating content. Like, will your posts stick around? Does it become more in the moment? Does anyone scroll back through people's previous content anyway? I think even Adam Missouri said, we're not sure about this, but yeah, I literally saw that as an update first thing this morning.
That's fascinating. Jury's still out on Threads at the moment, but we'll have to wait and see.
We'll look. Yeah.
The things that are important though is that search is now in the app. This is going to make it absolutely more usable. So search is now in the app. Topics is coming to Threads as well. So that's a super important one, because topical stuff, now that is everything.
That's what it's about.
That's what it's all about. And that's what made Twitter into what it became. But they're rolling this out very carefully, because there is no such thing as hashtags. It's just one topic per post, which makes sense. So they're trying to get away from like trend jacking and that kind of thing. So it's going to be really interesting. I think that's possibly the most interesting thing that I'm personally focused on in Threads or on Threads, is how it will work with having nice positive sentiments and still be like in the moment, newsworthy, relevant, up-to-date content. So yeah, very curious on that one. There's some more remix options coming to YouTube. Again, you'll see collaborations, more sound options too. So this is super useful as well. If you ever see a YouTube video that you think that's really cool, I'd love to do a little take on that. This is where you can just press that button on remix, and you can remix it with your own take. And again, this just shows a new way of getting engagement, newer way of creating content as well. So I think that's super smart. And with that, I didn't think we were going to make it. 5 minutes to spare.
February is supposed to be a short month.
Yeah. Well, for the world of social,
that extra day, isn't it? It's made it more.
But really, there's 3 high levels across all of that. I won't read it because you'll see it on the slides here. But despite the fact that we've been talking across 60 slides and 55 minutes, really there are 3 key takeaways. And do we have any questions at all? Because I actually can't see.
We don't have questions. We've had kind of some exchange of conversations around B2B and B2C and search. I'm just going to smile at the comment around social media has played a part in the rise of the dry robe. Yes, guilty. Don't think Threads has lived up to the hype. I think the challenge with this session, Andy, is that we pack so much in and talk so fast that it's quite difficult to do live chat at the same time. But we will be back next month, as we always are. You're welcome to send us questions in advance. This is now, as soon as we hit the end button, it will be on our LinkedIn profiles. You can continue writing live chat questions. Andy and I will always keep an eye on that and dive in and answer. So if you've been watching intently and not scribbling down, you can still comment and engage on it. So please do. It is a lot to take in.
Well, I think we can probably close out. 3 minutes.
We'll close out. Yeah, give you 3 minutes back. Time to take a breath. I've just popped the link into the chat for those that are watching now. Slightly earlier next month because of Easter. It will be the 21st of March. Do watch the recording. We'll send the slides. Get in touch with us. Connect with us. Thank you for watching.
See you soon. Bye-bye.